Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Event Industry News Podcast with me, James Dickson, wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever or whenever you tune in to today's podcast from. Now, regular listeners to the podcast will know that it's very rare that I actually reference the title of the podcast. Now, usually that's for a very, very simple reason, and that is that the title is usually decided once we finish the recording and we listen back to the content and what we've captured in that particular episode. Today is ever so slightly different because the title of today's podcast is very much going to be the start point for today's conversation. And that is how hybrid workforces are becoming more efficient with online and hybrid events, from town halls to sales kickoffs to award ceremonies. To discuss this title and indeed this topic and to kick things off today, we must welcome, of course, our guest to today's podcast. It is the CEO of vFairs. I'm delighted to say that Muhammed Younas joins the podcast today. Younas, very warm welcome to the Event Industry News Podcast, and thank you very much for taking the time out today to join us.
Thank you, James, for having me. Excited for the next steps.
Yeah, and it's going to be, as always on this podcast, a short but concise chat about the topic. And this is one that I've got sort of particularly strong personal opinions on, all of which are positive to sort of set that stall out straight away. I'm a freelancer, so for many years now, since I've sort of worked for myself, I've worked from home and worked anywhere where I can basically open a laptop and have a mobile phone handy is my place of work. But the last few years, Younas, have very much seen hybrid workforces becoming a thing. Working from home is not a brand new thing, but it exploded, didn't it, for obvious reasons. Tell us maybe first of all about how the hybrid workforce affected you directly as a business in vFairs. Presumably, like everybody, you had to be very, very quick to adapt and, implement new processes fairly quickly.
Absolutely. And again, just a bit of context, right? So, see, I have been working from home since late 2014, right? So when COVID came and everyone started telling me that, oh, by the way, we're quarantined, I'm working from home. I was like, with that definition, I have been quarantined for the last 7-8 years, right? So, again, vFairs was founded as a remote first company, which was that, again, we are 250 plus people right now. Never ever we have hired someone for a particular office. Now we do have offices across the world and people do work, from office. But again, that's their choice. That's their choice, just because, the nature of their job or, just their best productivity comes out of being in a physical office. Again, I can just give you a bit of background about why I believed in it even before COVID. After COVID, it has become a thing for the entire world, and how I feel like now world is changing of how they're dealing with this hybrid workforce, right? So for us, in many ways, hiring the right talent was always the preferred choice as compared to hiring someone in a particular location. Again, that was for us the key. We were trying to do something which was pretty unique at that time, not trying to create these virtual environments, immersive experience, metaverse kind of a feeling 7 to 8 years back, right? And again, for us, again, we couldn't be selective. Oh, I will only hire people in US or in Canada or somewhere out in Europe. It was all about, okay, who has the right talent, and let me hire that person. That has become a thing now. Like again, that talent is key now, just because pretty much every small company to every big company is open to hybrid workforce. So that for us was the key. I think what has changed after COVID right now, and specifically even for us, is that when you go from 25 people to 250 people, like you have done in case of vFairs or many other companies who have exploded, in terms of growth during the pandemic time. What has become now more important is not just talent, but how to keep that talent engaged. It's easy to keep that talent engaged when they are in the office, because just by the nature of being in the office, you're meeting with managers, you're meeting with other colleagues, everyone can see you. But now that engagement, that hybrid workforce engagement, has become the single biggest challenge that any big company or any company of any size would be facing right now. And again, that's where I'm really excited to speak about the topic, during this podcast today.
Yeah, and you said something interesting there about essentially being able to cast your net wider by not being restricted to a geographical location. Do you think that that in itself, before we get onto some of the other discussion points, has allowed your own business certainly to become stronger? Because effectively, by not limiting yourself to a geographic location, you actually are offering a greater opportunity to employ the right people. So you're finding a stronger workforce because that there isn't that restriction in place.
Absolutely. And again, I think, see, we were very lucky that we were founded as a remote first company. So when the pandemic came, I think, a big part of our success was that, okay, we can actually hire from all over the world from day one, as compared to many other companies who are trying to fill up that talent gap in a certain location. So for us, that has become, a key to provide 24/7 support to our customers. That has become a key to serve customers from 100 plus different countries, very, very early on. For many other companies, they cannot think about it for years up until they have achieved a certain point. But for us, like literally, day one, we were a 24/7, 365-day support company for all of our, customers from all over the world. So yeah, I think that's the biggest benefit that any company can get when they embrace this idea of this hybrid workforce.
Absolutely. Bringing it back to today's subject, and just to repeat what I said at the beginning for listeners, how hybrid workforces are becoming more efficient with online and hybrid events. To me, this is a natural progression here. And as a company that was founded, as a remote workforce, fundamentally from the very beginning, from the very outset, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that other companies that now have got hybrid workforces working for them and working remotely online are now going to be more adept at running online and hybrid events themselves. And I don't know if you agree with me on this, but the first and the biggest point I would make about that as to why that may be is that they've now got the experience of what it's like to be sat there in an office at home or to be sat at their kitchen table trying to work from a laptop, which puts them in a better position to understand what people who are attending a hybrid or an online event may want to have from that experience.
Absolutely. I think those 2 years have made everyone realize the following. First of all, we all can be productive from home. That's one. We all can get things done from home. That's two. And all of that can be done in many cases a lot more efficiently. Especially if your job role allows that, right? So, and again, everyone has experienced it. Not just the CEO, not just the HR head, not just the sales manager. Everyone from an entry level person to the CEO of the company, they all have experienced the benefits of working from home. So I think we're all on the same page over there. And again, what I have started seeing right now is that people are going a couple of steps further, as we all, again, can work from anywhere we want, whether it's office or from home. They're now embracing it across the entire landscape, of how a company is run. For example, uh, 2022 and now 2023 is the first year where we are having several sales kickoff that are of hybrid nature. So while there are certain people who are willing to travel or who can travel to a certain location, have meetings with other colleagues in a certain location, but an equal amount of people or more are attending that sales kickoff virtually. We are also seeing that a lot of those companies who used to only hire through the university grads by going to the university, now both universities and companies are both running online job fairs or participating in online job fairs. I was just in a podcast last week. I was showing them the stats that never ever in using our platform have we run so many virtual job fairs, both for universities or both for other organizations now than historically ever in the past, right? So even recruitment has shifted a lot more online or hybrid. And I'll just really like one more thing, and again then we can carry on. Uh, the newest trend that we are seeing right now is that even the onboarding of the employees, companies are now working with us to do what we call a virtual onboarding fair, because they're saying that, by the way, when these employees were joining in a certain office, they had this culture to make that onboarding a lot more fun, a lot more exciting, people
Yeah.
meeting with these new people. Uh, and now, of course, with everyone working remotely, that has become more of a checklist. Okay, do they have a laptop? Do they have an account, and so forth. So that excitement of, that you get as a new employee, and again that you give that new employee as a company, That experience they're now trying to mimic that also in a hybrid and online environment by making them feel as if they're entering into their virtual offices, a virtual headquarter, meeting with actual people, face to face, in a virtual setting. So these are some of the newest trends that we have started seeing, companies, kind of starting now.
One thing that I would like to ask is, as we progress, is about the development of platforms, and what sort of technological developments have gone on in the last 2 years, certainly, to help make that process a little bit easier that you just described. Because there's one thing, everybody logging on to a video call meeting, whichever platform you're using, can be Zoom, Teams, Google Meet. There's loads of other options out there, but when we initially entered this phase, it was small boxes on a screen with people's, faces in there, and, oh, you're on mute and you've not started your camera. Yeah. The process has become more sophisticated, hasn't it? Even with those basic platforms, we've already seen platforms like Zoom add integrations and other apps and APIs with other integrations in there. So that's I guess, by wanting to make something like the onboarding process that you just described there more interactive and more excitable for the new person, that's probably driven your technology development.
Absolutely. And again, I think, see, the beauty of the time that we all live in is that we all understand that technology can help solve a lot of these engagement problems that one would have with any new employee joining in, right? So companies are very open in sharing the gaps that they're seeing with existing tools, and how they want to fill in those gaps, and what are some of the problems that they want to solve. So, for example, for onboarding one, they're like, okay, if that person is in a Zoom call or a Teams call, I don't know, 7 to 8 times in a particular day, then there's nothing exciting about that, onboarding. Yeah. How can we make that person feel as if they actually are now part of this, virtual headquarter, virtual company, and how big the organization is? Because in a Teams call, in a Zoom call, you're meeting with that 1, 2, or 3 people, whereas in a real world setting, when you used to go to one of these big Fortune 500 companies and joining that company, you get to see hundreds of people at that point, while you are just taking the elevator, going from one place to your office or to your desk, right? So we're trying to kind of mimic a lot of that using our platform. Then the second thing is, in a Teams call, it's very direct. I'm only meeting with a team or with my manager. However, if you can see a virtual office of a particular company, then you actually know that, okay, here are those 100 people sitting, here's this department sitting, who is busy, who's free, who's having a coffee, and can I interact with them or not? So we're trying to replicate a lot of that. And again, all of that came from just these companies sharing their experiences of what was that part of the onboarding that used to happen in a physical setting that they're missing in this current tools within the virtual environment, and we're trying to kind of fill up some of those gaps.
It's interesting. Some of the examples or ideas that I've heard in the last 18 months, a couple spring to mind. It was one company who said that they had a webcam enabled on a laptop in the corner of their office up on a shelf, effectively sending out a continuous stream of what was happening in the office. And the sole purpose of it was it was so that anybody who was working from home could log into this and effectively feel like that they had a view of what was happening in the office at the same time, to try and replicate that dynamic. And something else which might seem really simple is just adding people to a WhatsApp group. So the company had a company WhatsApp group for business communications and as well as things like Slack, but they also had a more social WhatsApp group that was for people from the same workplace to talk outside of work about what TV shows they were watching, what movies they'd been to, what they did at the weekend. And the new member of staff was added to it sort of immediately as part of that onboarding process. So almost these ideas of using other platforms that we've all got readily available to us now as a way of just improving that remote working or that hybrid working experience.
Absolutely. And again, I have heard both of those examples as well. And I think that they're all brilliant examples to just, again, break the ice for that new person who's joining in, or even the existing team members who want that cross-departmental or cross-country collaboration with some of these companies. There are a few more. We have seen companies with us who just after an hour or two, depending on, your own setting, want to match you with just someone randomly in the company based on the settings, based on what okay, who do you want to meet with, or who do you want to collaborate with. And then they have what we kind of call kind of speed dating session, like quick 5-minute catch up between X and Y. And if they're having a great conversation, they can extend that call, and kind of meet with each other. And again, they're having once a week a 30-minute slot where you can interact with 5-6 people differently, in any company. That's one. The
Mm.
second one is that as you're taking a break, or are free or open for a chit chat, you can set up one of your settings in your Slack message, etc., and then people can reach out to you, just for having a fun conversation, and a lot more. I think the idea is to make people just get the benefit that they used to get in that physical office setting, however not take away from them the kind of productivity that they have been getting through this hybrid workforce, through this remote setting.
Mm. And it's important that we take all of these ideas and these points that we're highlighting, and translate them back to what we're doing, which is delivering events for people, isn't it? And everything that we've spoken about so far is essentially can be translated directly into the event experience that we're delivering for audiences, whether that be hybrid. And I reference again in the introduction today, in the title, that this is right the way through from town hall meetings, sales kickoffs, award ceremonies. All of these things have been done in a hybrid format or in a completely online format in the last 2.5 years. And we have got better at them, haven't we? We've learned from our own experiences, and we're using those to make those online experiences better for our clients.
Absolutely. And again, we are seeing how everyone from attendees to event organizers to tech platforms are just getting better and better at it. Again, just January is typically the month of for those sales kickoffs, for those company town halls that happens at a global level once or twice in a year, where you kind of set the goals for the entire company for the whole year. We are seeing most of those happening through a virtual or a hybrid setting, just because again these companies have employed now workforce that is of hybrid nature, and then they are just getting better at it. And especially and even if you go to the next part, whether it's onboarding or anything other thing, uh, the definition of event has also changed. There are some events that are time bound. A sales kickoff will happen for 3 to 5 days in a week. A town hall will happen, I don't know, once in 2 weeks, or once in a month. However, there are now settings of platforms, virtual onboarding for a couple, that are there just 365 days. This is an ongoing event where you can go and you can make sure that you can interact with the employees within the company at any point. You have this virtual office environment right now, which is just, again, an ongoing event at all the times, where you can always see employees, who are working, who are off, and are they free, or are they in a call in that particular setting. So even the definition of event for many of our customers have changed, whether it's just one-off happening at a certain time, or just ongoing, that can be used at any point for internal interactions.
Mm. I've asked this question several times on the podcast, and I kind of almost feel like it would be remiss of me not to ask it whilst we're discussing this very subject today. And that's the question of companies who pre-pandemic were very much scared of having their staff work remotely, and work in a hybrid format. Uh, and that's not just in the events industry, that's for all industries. But in the events industry, I dare say there was still agencies, organizers, companies who wanted their workforce in one office space. They wanted to have that weekly or daily team meeting before everybody spread out to their workspaces and did their jobs. For those people, or for those companies who were really hesitant to do that pre-pandemic, who were almost forced into it, what sort of difference have you seen from your position, be it with clients or competitors? Have you seen some of them want to desperately return to the old way of working, or has it changed now to the point where we will never go back to how it was?
There will always be exceptions, but by and large, again, whether it's the vendors, whether it's our customers, whether they all see the benefit of working from home or the hybrid workforce, right? So again, except for a few exceptions here and there, there's not a single company of our scale or within our industry. And even when I'm speaking with customers, I think 4 hours out of the 8 hours I'm in call with my customers, you would see that a good 80 to 90% of them they have gone hybrid just forever. And again, they don't see any signs of them shifting back to purely office work environment, just because there's no need for it. And again, on the contrary, they feel that that would hurt their productivity, that would hurt the talent that they can retain if they will go just back fully to the office kind of a setting.
Well, in terms of some of the actual, programming and the development of the platform, what are some of the biggest leaps that you have made in, I suppose, the last 18 months since you really saw people adapt, pivot over to this sort of new way of working? What were there short-term and longer-term demands made of your particular technology that you had to work on either quickly or set out a roadmap for longer-term developments?
Absolutely. I'll answer the last 18 months as well, but first I'm quickly answer the last 18 days. The
Right.
last 18 days, what our platform has typically done, and again, you will see that in a lot of our upcoming events, is just an amazing use of AI technology within vFairs. So with the rise of ChatGPT and a lot of other AI technology, you will see that how event professionals in particular can come up with a lot of creative ideas using vFairs about the content, about the venue, about the location, about their again, paid marketing ads or anything else that is related to the event. So that's something where we have invested heavily and we continue to invest heavily, which is again the use of AI within the technology. And again, it goes from everything from even landing page content to marketing emails to all the promotions that you would do in social media and so forth. So that's in the last 18 days alone. But if I go back to last 18 months, see, vFairs in general has always been known for just how beautiful the platform looks like. It's about this immersive experience. So we have invested very heavily. We continue to invest very heavily on the metaverse kind of a feeling within our platform. That's one. The second thing is, as I mentioned, previously vFairs platform was used for one-off events, right? Do a conference, do a trade show, do a job fair, and so forth. We have added a lot of depth in terms of feature set over there, but as as per the nature of even in this podcast, a lot of our customers have started using us now for a 365-day evergreen type of use case, whether it is a virtual onboarding fair, whether it is again just a town hall or a meetup setting that's available 365 days, and or whether it's purely for their virtual recruitment that has gone fully remotely, fully online right now. And again, the platform is used as a recruitment platform also, 365 days. So that's second. The third one is, which is always big for these companies or any companies, is just integrations. Like they all want the event platform to be fully integrated with their entire ecosystem, from CRMs to email dispatch providers and so forth. And then again, security has always been the key. So just keep adding extra layers of security, whether it's the ISO compliance or the GDPR compliance or the CCPA compliance. So again, just adding further level of enhancements over there.
It's interesting when I think back to the immediate period when the pandemic kicked in. The people who I feel we always needed to look to for an example of how easy it was were students, particularly school children. At the time of the pandemic hitting, my two sons were both in high school. And one of them is now in his second year at university, but they were both in high school at that point. And almost overnight, the school that they're in adopted Microsoft Teams, set up different Teams channels and Teams groups. All of their lessons were delivered via video link. All of their work assignments were set and then submitted via Teams using the Office 365 environment. And literally overnight, with almost what I can see is hardly any introduction or explanation as to how to do it, my sons just knew how to do it. They just clicked the right buttons. They knew where to go on it, and the whole school was working off there. And I think that from a technological point of view, we live in a very, very interesting age where often we're at a point where younger people actually can help older people. And
Absolutely.
I think it's the first period in history where really I'm not disregarding what older people have in terms of wisdom and life experience and skills and career development. But we live in a very unique age at the moment, I think, where younger people understand the type of technology that we're dealing with so well that we should never, ever disregard how quickly they learn and how much younger people could offer us, and I think that applies very much in the situations that we've been talking today about hybrid work in the events industry.
Absolutely. And again, I'll say I have two daughters. Like one of them, it was her first year in school. So again, she started in a remote setting, like for the first year. And again, in her case, they all used Google Classrooms. And again, somehow she knew how to use it, right? So again, like she was able to figure it out, through this remote working environment. So again, I agree with you. I think wherever we all can use technology to add efficiency, whether it is in a school setting or in an event setting or in a workforce setting. I think the idea is to see like how we can provide all of that flexibility to everyone, give them the benefit, and get the best out of everyone, in that setting. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've had the pleasure today of talking on the Event Industry News podcast to the founder and CEO at vFairs, Muhammed Younas, who, and I didn't actually ask at the start of the episode, Younas, where you're joining us today. Is it Toronto? Are you Canada based?
Yeah, I'm Canada-based. I live in Toronto. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, no, I really appreciate you taking the time to hop into this quick discussion about hybrid workforces, how things have changed, and particularly, your own experiences of it, because I suppose it is quite a unique position to be in at vFairs, in that the company was founded upon the principle of being, a remote workforce. So for you, there was no pivoting or changing really required like there were with some companies. So it's quite a unique perspective. Before we wrap up today, tell us about how people can find out more about what you're up to at vFairs, anything that's on the horizon this year, anything you want to shout about. Now's the time to do it.
Absolutely. No, again, people can check out like what we have to offer by going to vfairs.com. So it's vfairs.com. And again, we are very active on LinkedIn. So again, if people want to follow us up over there, we share a lot of industry news, what people are doing and how we all can serve you guys.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And of course, before we wrap up completely on today's episode, our own little shout outs. If you are listening to this today via your podcast platform on your mobile device, don't forget to head over to eventindustrynews.com on your browser, and you can check out the latest news, features, special supplements, and of course the A to Z supplier directory that's on eventindustrynews.com. You will also find video versions of all of our podcasts. Of course, you may be there already watching the video version of today's podcast. Thank you very much for joining us if you've done that. And please don't forget that you can go in the opposite direction. If you watch our video versions of the podcast on the website regularly, you can also listen to them all via your chosen podcast platform, which brings us to the end of today's episode. Our thanks once again to Muhammed Younas from vFairs for joining the podcast today. My name's James Dickson, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of the Event Industry News podcast. Goodbye, everybody.